quite as crowded as Tuesday. We're going to start this July 16th council meeting to order. And ask the clerk to call the roll.
First, can I say we've turned the air down as far as it'll go, and it does not seem to be budging, so we may have a problem with the air. So bear with us. Mr. Green?
Here.
Mr. Lyda?
Here.
Dr. Middlebrooks?
Here.
Mr. Murphy?
Here.
Mr. Posey?
Here.
Mr. Shaw?
Here.
Mr. Smith?
Here. If the clerk will please provide the invocation and Mr. Posey the pledge.
Let us pray. Lord, thank you for the gift of life. We are so grateful for the heroic and miraculous rescue of the boys from the cave in Thailand. Thank you for showing your love and compassion through every man and woman responsible for saving them. Help us to remember this event when we are feeling like there is no kindness left in the world. Where there is love, you are there. May this strengthen our faith in you and our belief in the goodness of people. In your name we pray. Amen.
Salute and pledge.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
That being taken care of, I'm open for recommendation approval of minutes of the July 2nd regular meeting and the July 10th special call meeting and the July 12th work session.
Move for approval without reading?
Second.
We have a motion, second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Next in the report section, Mr. Mayor, we have some recognitions. We do a lot of recognizing in the last 2 years so far.
One of the best part of meetings is an opportunity to recognize our wonderful employees. And tonight we have two that have served us well for 30 years. And I'd like for Eddie Scott to come up with his wife, Beverly. Good evening. Eddie has been with us now 30 years, started in 1988 as a firefighter. Became a fire apparatus operator in 1999, and now is working out at Station 10 at Ross Bridge. And Eddie is he's one of the go-to guys. Somebody that you know that you can count on, not only around the station and taking care of the station, where there's pride, and you see it, pride in the taking care of the station and the apparatus. Those are all important things. He's got a tremendous work ethic. Someone that we've counted on so many years, who works in a lead worker position as well, where the officer's off, Eddie slides over and takes command of that ladder truck that he is on right now. And he is just an incredibly good person, a wonderful leader, a great husband, just a great father. He's taking care of his mom as well. Just a lot of things on your plate I know that you're dealing with now. But outside of that, he's a guy that when you went to a fire, and I've been to many with him, you knew that he was going to go in with you and fight that fire and take it head on. He's not scared of anything. And we just are so grateful for all of your 30 years of service. Thank you so much.
Eddie lost a few hairs. We can just get another 20 out of it. Eddie, you gonna be able to give the city another 20?
I don't know if I would. I think I need to get that daytime job, and I would get it. But we'll see.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And next, we have Captain Rusty Lowe. Captain Lowe, come down. He has two great kids with him, Julie and Russell, and his mom, Mrs. Lowe. Can you come down as well? Y'all like to come down?
I remember when those kids were born.
I'm telling you, we watched these two grow up. They're both great college students now, one at Ole Miss, Russell's at Ole Miss, and I think Julie's at Washington. How about that?
Which one's more like Dad?
You're standing right there. Mrs. Lowe has seen Rusty grow up, and his desire to be a firefighter started early on. I think when I visited their home, 3 or 4 years ago, I saw a picture of him on his, in his bedroom, when I guess you were, 12, baby, and you had a little firefighter picture on, and your dog bit you. If I'm not mistaken. I do remember that. Isn't that right, Miss Lowe? That was her dog, that's right. Rusty came with us in 1988. He had previous service out in, where was that you came from? Center Point and Graysville. So he had a lot of service already before he came to Hoover, and he became a medic in 1999, became a fire lieutenant in 2001, and became our EMS officer in 2007, and was promoted to captain in 2018. And Rusty is known by everyone, probably in the country, but let's just narrow it down to Hoover. He's really is just an incredible individual that has his hands in just about everything that goes on in Hoover Fire Department and in our city as well. And is not only is a great fire officer and a great leader and an incredible paramedic, but he has just a wonderful work ethic. And he's done so many things. We have a lot of great events here, our SEC tournament, the golf tournament. All of these events that bring lots of people from all over a lot of times from all over the country. And we want to be able to put our best foot forward, and we do that through EMS. And Rusty has led that effort for, really before 2007. He was always someone that we would go to. He really knows the job, and we're just, he's somebody that I know you're getting close, thinking about retiring. And you've heard the old saying that you can take a glass of water and stick your finger in it, and when you pull it out, that's how fast it takes someone to replace you. Well, that won't be the case with Rusty. We'll have to put our whole fist in. It'll take a little bit longer to replace someone like you. He's a great friend, and I know that everybody in here probably loves Rusty. He's a great guy, and I appreciate all that you've done for us and all that whatever you decide to do in the next 30 years. He had his hand in a great rescue too, about a month ago. It's been about a month, and we really appreciate he saved one of our police officers.
Cap, is there anything you want to say? Over there? You've been given an opportunity to microphone and you're not taking it? Are you ill? Maybe his son would like to say a few words. Anything else, Mr. Mayor? All right. We're going to move on to item number 6. This would be SFM is going to introduce the candidate for the general manager's position at the Hoover Metropolitan Complex. I believe most, if not all of us, were given opportunities earlier to
Council, Mr. Mayor, pleasure to be here and pleased to present you all with SFM's proposed general manager selection for the Hoover Met Complex. As you know, we conducted a national search. The combination of the destination of Hoover as a great place to live and work, along with SFM's national network, and the first-year success of the Hoover Met Complex, made this position very compelling. We filtered hundreds of applicants through questionnaires, phone interviews, Skype interviews, in-person interviews, strenuous background checks, personality profiles, and reference checks. The outcome of that process, that gauntlet, is the man I'm pleased to present the city's consideration, John Sparks. Real quickly, a couple of things about John. He's a 20-year Navy veteran with a heart for service. Beyond the service to our country, I found through conversation John's value of service, accountability, and integrity are an excellent fit for the culture being built at the Hoover Met Complex. Since leaving the Navy over 20 years ago in 1997, the majority of his career has been dedicated to managing buildings and complexes in the sport and event business, including the NBA, WNBA, NHL, NFL, and specific focus on excellence in food and beverage operations. 10 years leading the AT&T Center, home of the San Antonio Spurs, the famous San Antonio Rodeo, and various sport and non-sport events and concerts, and most recently, almost 4 years managing the Citrus Bowl Stadium for the city of Orlando. Most of all, he's excited to come home. He's got family ties here around Hoover in Alabama. All of those reasons that we think he's a great fit to present to you all as candidate for general manager. So with that, I'll hand it over to John. He can answer any questions you may have for him.
Council, name and address, please.
Soon to be Hoover, Alabama, I hope. John Sparks, hail from Orlando, Florida right now, and happy for the opportunity to take on this challenge. I think that my past background in the sports industry, coupled with my military structure and process, is a good fit. My family, siblings, mother and father, I was the only family member not born in the state of Alabama or the city of Birmingham. So being the last of my family, this is coming home, and it's a good fit for me. I have a large family in the area, 3 here in Rainbow City, that will be good to get back and grow closer ties to my family. So I'm looking forward to the challenge, developing some good processes and some good communication.
Any questions from the council? Weren't able to take care of earlier today. Mr. Shaw. Any quizzes?
Have any further questions? I think we had some good conversation today as people got to meet Mr. Sparks. I guess maybe if you can elaborate on what you see the potential of the sports complex overall and why you were willing to take this position. What do you see? I guess what was cool enough to bring you here to do this?
I think that it's canvas right now that's not fully developed, and I think that once that development comes to fruition with the inclusion of the outdoor fields and some of the other attributes that are already there with the stadium, I think there's a lot of creative ways to bring events to the community and to the complex that we may not have been thought about.
Would you mind to talk a little bit about your experience with the Disney course that you went through and some of that, and how you see some of those principles applying as to how we serve the customers in the community and from around the nation?
So with my background in Orlando and the sports industry, I've had the opportunity to go to the Disney Academy, the Disney Institute. I'm from the land of the mouse, and they do things, there's a reason for what they do, they're very successful in what they do. They're very analytical in the ability to look back at what they do and correct things that go awry. But they develop a service model, which I think that we will probably seek very rapidly to develop here. It's a collaborative consensus of what's the most important things that you want to achieve out of the facility, and then you strive to meet those goals. And one of those is usually a non-negotiable. So what in your service model above customer service would you say is not negotiable? And I think that comes down to public safety and applicant safety. So
rather than throw out a million more questions, I'd go ahead and move for approval of Mr. John Sparks as general manager.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any other questions from the council? I don't know that at this point, we need to open this up to comments from the audience because this is a council decision. But if you'll stick around, whether you get hired or not, maybe I'll be available to some questions from the public. All right. Jason, do you have anything else? No, sir. All right, we have a motion and a second. Hearing no other comments from the council. Go a little extra, Madam Clerk, if you please call the roll.
Mr. Green?
Aye.
Mr. Lyda?
Aye.
Dr. Middlebrooks?
Aye.
Mr. Murphy?
Aye.
Mr. Posey?
Aye.
Mr. Shaw?
Aye.
Mr. Smith?
As Simon would say on America's Got Talent, you got 7 stars. So welcome aboard. All right, moving on, item 7, resolution 583518, Mr. Corley.
This resolution amends the budget for fiscal year ending September 30, 2018, as set forth on the exhibit attached to the resolution.
Move to approve resolution 583518.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. For those that were not here on Thursday, very quickly, I see that Dr. Lopez is not here. Is there anybody in here in her stead to give us about a 15, 20-second rendition?
Yes, Mr. President, this budget amendment deals with 3 items. One is a no-cost item. It's simply a title change on a position in the IT department that is recently vacated. And for purposes of clarity and marketing that position, the staff felt like a title change was in order. The other 2 are both generator projects. We've had money allocated for the library to have a backup generator. They currently don't have generator power, and so it creates an issue for them and their network of servers and what happens when there's an outage. As sometimes projects go, we got estimates last year, we allocated the money, and then of course it comes back higher than anybody thought it would. This would give them a generator of adequate capacity and installed with automatic power transfer to maintain all the data in the library. The third is a generator at fire station number 4. The current generator that's there was actually donated to the city 20 plus years ago, was installed by city personnel. It does not have automatic generator transfer. So this would replace that generator. It's beyond its serviceable life, parts are not available, etc. We'll replace it with an adequate unit and also would install it and give them the ability to have automatic transfer power. It's our busiest fire station, and they're having to run out and manually crank a generator and manually raise the doors, and that's not the position we need it to be in when there's an emergency when the power's out.
And it's our understanding that these funds are coming from capital project funds that have found themselves to be available in this budget.
In both cases, partially. Yes, sir. The library had some unneeded or unused, previously allocated capital funds that will apply to their project. That'll have to be supplemented to some extent. And in the case of the fire department, there was a ditch project there also at Fire Station 4 that came in fairly substantially under budget because of work that was performed by Public Works. And so a lot of the majority of that project is available from those monies. It will also have to be supplemented to some extent.
Very good. Any questions from the council? Any from the audience? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Next, we're going to have a public hearing for the abatement of public nuisance due to weeds and/or gas. Mr. Mack,
Yes, sir.
pictures we have are fairly current.
Yes, sir. All the pictures were taken this afternoon.
All right. Which set are we starting with? Windcrest or everyone?
Windcrest is an abatement hearing. This is my second time it's been in front of you, and we vote to have the city cut it if that's what you desire. You'll notice the front yard's been cut, and exactly almost half of the backyard is being cut.
would just be going and doing the rest of the backyard?
Yes, sir. This is the case, the owner is trying to let the part of the backyard go natural, and, you know, the city just feels the whole backyard needs to be clear.
Any other questions from the council? This is a public hearing. Any from the audience?
No, I'm the owner of that property.
If you come down, please, sir, and provide your name, I think we've got your address. But for the record and for those playing at home, if you'd give us both your name.
My name is Mohammed Salim, and I'm the owner of the Linkrist property. And I recently purchased that property, and I've been watching this property for a long time, and it's been outgrown for a long time. The back end, front yard I've been managing, so but, you know, as an owner, so I started like half of the property, like backyard, and then, you know, of course, like the other half, I was like, start cutting down too. But I don't know why I'm getting notified for that, close that, and that reason.
Obviously, you've been notified by the city
Yes, yes,
prior to tonight.
yes. So I talked to him that.
Are you renting this property out, or are you living there?
I'm not doing this.
All right, Mr. Mack?
Yes, I was just saying, you know, I did speak with Mr. Muhammad, and he did, you know, clear the portion in the back after I, you know, spoke with him. It's just the city ordinance require anything over 12 inches, and we just feel like that it needs to be completed with the entire back.
Have you been notified prior to tonight?
This is the first time this house has never been on the agenda.
I understand, but has he been notified prior to tonight to come
Okay.
into compliance, and hasn't done so, which brought us to this point?
Yes, sir. There was just, you know, he wanted a question about the whole backyard that he has been notified.
Okay, Mr. Posey?
Mr. President, before we mentioned you were going to do it, before we spend city money on this to cut it, could you have it done by the next council meeting in August? Say we continue it then?
Oh, yes, sir. I mean, we've worked with people before, and as long as they cut it before we get out there, we don't have any problem with that. But I noticed some of them have a private.
You speak into the microphone, sir.
I noticed in my neighborhood, there's like a private fence up there, and they have the same situation, and I don't know why I got picked.
Well, if you'd like to report them,
I don't want to be mean to them, but
obviously somebody reported.
that's true, that's so true, that's so true. I'm here to help, you know, myself also and the city also, but,
Mr. President,
Murphy?
just to clarify some things that I don't want, your name again, sir?
Muhammad,
To feel as if he was picked out. So if we can just briefly kind of, for the public and also Mr. Muhammad, kind of see how do we arrive at this place? Because I never want the city going out there to doing anything mighty mo. I want to make sure you feel comfortable with the way our process have been, because since I've been here and prior, we got some prior council members in here now, this process has always been the same way, and done a really good job of getting us information back and forth, but I want to make sure you're clear, and you're not being picked out, so we just go over a little bit of process.
yes, sir. This is a process that is complaint.
Get it close to the mic so those playing at home.
Yes, sir. We do have a process where it's complaint driven. Someone calls us in, and I go out to confirm if it's any, you know, over 12 inches, and see if we have a problem. We do send out a notice and try to open communication with the property owner, you know, find out what's going on, and, you know, most of the time it's taken care of, but it is complaint driven. It comes in from the neighbors. We don't go out just looking for them, and that's our general process.
Any chance property changed hands between first notification and today?
I mean, my understanding, just speaking with Mr. Muhammad, that, I mean, he's purchased it within the last 3 months.
Yes.
So, but the notices have all gone to him on that, so.
Very good.
Mr. President, Mr. Muhammad, so you do intend to cut the rest of the backyard?
Matter of fact, I did one time, actually. It's almost like when.
But currently,
Yes, sir.
we have only half of it cut.
Yes.
Do you intend to cut the rest
Yes,
out of it?
yes, sir.
When?
Well, it's kind of like,
When?
How many days do you need?
Yeah.
probably at least a month.
How about 2 weeks?
All right, that's fine.
We don't meet again if it's gonna be, put off until the next meeting.
6 months?
That'll be 2 weeks. Well, I mean, I think it's enough, especially if we decide to do this now, the city's going to pay to cut the rest of the yard. If you were willing to cut it between now and the first
Yes,
August
yes.
meeting, then we're not spending city money to cut the yard.
No, no, definitely, sir. I'll take care of it. But my question, I don't know why, people, because this property, I've been watching this property for a long time, and it's been outgrown for a long time. And when I bought it, it's almost like 10, above than me, and I cut it when I bought it. Now it's because of the summer rain, and it's going back
Right.
again. So I will cut it, I mean, that's not a point, but just not, I don't think so. I'm gonna maintain like every month I have to do it because it's bushes. It's not a grass up there, it's just like too much.
Please understand that, and I believe you said this is the second time that this property has come before the city. This is the first time.
Well, this is the first time the property as a whole, this is the second time y'all had it in here.
Okay, second time we've had it here. You've taken on a pretty large responsibility, and we would like to know going forward that you're not gonna allow the property to become an issue again.
No, sir.
And of course, we don't go around looking for problems, but these are complaint driven. So if you've got other properties that you feel need attention from the city, what's that new number, Mr. Rice? 739-7311 is our new phone number. That anybody can call about it.
I'll call him.
All right,
Mr. President,
Dr. Middlebrook.
one last thing. Mr. Mack, could you explain the reasoning why we adhere to certain such standards, the public health risk?
Yes, sir. When properties, get overgrown, it can cause rodents. People are always calling about rodents and snakes. Everything's growing right now this summer like crazy, and the neighbors are afraid of that kind of stuff. That would be the main concern. And plus, it can spread, when the yard gets overgrown, it can spread in other people's yards. So there's some issues on that.
Mr. President, I have one quick question.
Yes, sir.
How do we determine, what is our standard for what's the difference between just overgrowth and woods? Because I know a lot of houses have woods in their backyard or whatever. What's the difference? Is it type of plants? Is it presence of rodents and snakes? I mean, what?
No, sir. Generally, it comes down if the yard's ever been maintained. If the yard has been maintained and it's like decides, I don't want to cut it anymore, I'm going to make it natural, we wouldn't allow that. But if your yard is on a steep slope, and you've never maintained it, it's natural the way it came, that's what we look at on that.
Okay.
So,
Makes sense, thank you.
All right. Everybody, I think, has had an opportunity to speak,
Except me.
except for Dr. Mr. Light.
Thank you, sir. May I speak?
Yes, sir.
I think Mr. Mack said something poignant just a couple of seconds ago that, this is as much, Mr. Muhammad, about your neighbors as it is about you. And I don't think they're here tonight to speak, but if they were, they've been looking at this for a long time. And someone reported it to the city, and you've been served ample notice to get this cut. And I appreciate your willingness to cut it, but if there's a motion made to extend it, I'll vote against it. Well, the city is incredibly generous in giving folks time to remedy this. And on behalf of your future neighbors, I'll vote to not extend time because I think this needs to be addressed.
All right, anything else? Anything else from the public, from this public hearing? You're going to need to come down, provide your name and address. Come down to the podium.
just for a quick question.
For anything. We maintain good, proper records. We have people watching on YouTube at home. And everybody deserves a chance to hear what you have to say. You may be sitting up here in 2.5 years. Yes, sir.
Jeff Lovell, 6531 Quill Run Drive.
Yes, sir.
I think it was Mr. Posey who mentioned that if the city has to go out, cut the grass, the city's gonna pay for it. If you have a resident that's not complying with the law, the code of the city behind the world, then not be billed back to the resident.
It would be also included in the ordinance is the city would place a lien on the property for the expense.
Okay, that wasn't mentioned. That's my question.
All right. Very good. Anyone else for the purpose of the public hearing? Seeing, hearing none, Mr. Corley, resolution 583618.
This resolution declares the following property as public nuisance due to weeds and or grass, 3506 Lane Crest Drive, Hoover, Alabama, and orders the abatement thereof as provided under Alabama law.
Mr. President, I move for approval of resolution 5836.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any conversation from the council? Any more from the public? Hearing none, let's have a roll call.
Mr. Green?
Aye.
Mr. Lyman?
Aye.
Dr. Middlebrooks?
Aye.
Mr. Murphy?
Aye.
Mr. Posey?
Aye.
Mr. Shaw?
Aye.
Mr. Smith?
Aye. Sir, we have voted to go forward with any actions necessary by the city. I'm sure that if you work out something, Mr. Mack, that would be very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, item 9, resolution 583718, Mr. Corley.
This resolution declares the following properties as public nuisances due to weeds or grass, 3217 Georgetown Place, 2244 Pine Lane, 3575 Warner Ridge Drive, and orders the abatement thereof as provided under Alabama law.
Oh, wait, first, we need a motion.
Move for approval of resolution 583718.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Mr. Mack.
Yes, sir. We have three properties. This is your first hearing on all of these to declare a public nuisance. One on Warner Ridge Drive, you'll see is a commercial building. It's seems to be in foreclosure. It's a company out in Florida that owns that. But it's obviously overgrown. First time y'all seen that one. And one on Pine Lane. There was an attempt made to cut portions of the front yard, but there's still large portions of it that are badly overgrown. This one, y'all might recognize, y'all seen this one before. And the third one is, first time you've seen it, and it's not badly overgrown, but we have had a complaint on it. It does have weeds over 12 inches in several areas.
I see on Pine Lane that there's to be a vehicle on the property.
Yes, sir.
We're in.
Yes, sir. The vehicle is, it's inoperable, and we're working at the same time to get that out. So
We may give you another opportunity here shortly.
yes, sir.
All right, any questions from the council? Any from the audience? Seeing and hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed nay, the ayes have it. Next, we have resolution 583818, Mr. Corley.
This resolution authorizes Mayor Frank Mercado to execute a renewal of the unmanned aircraft insurance policy with Alliance Global and Corporate Specialty Insurance Company.
Move for approval of resolution 583818.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any comments or questions from the council?
Yes, Mr. President.
Yes, sir.
We didn't have an amount on this.
I was provided that right before the meeting. The premium is $6,545, which is $455 less than the previous budget year.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Anything from the audience? This is insurance on the, I believe there's 3 drones that the police department uses, 5 drones that the police department uses in their investigations. Any questions from the council or the audience? All in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed nay. The ayes have it. Next, we have resolution 583918, Mr. Corley.
This resolution authorizes Mayor Frank Mercado to execute an interlocal agreement with the Jefferson County Emergency Maintenance Agency regarding outdoor warning siren system maintenance.
Move to approve resolution 583918.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any comments or questions from the council?
Yes, Mr. President, yes. Mr. Washington, we ever get a number?
27 sirens would be $10,800 annually.
7 sirens.
Thank you.
For those that weren't here Thursday, this is a maintenance agreement at a set price of, what was that, Mr. Blaze? $400 per unit, which is pretty good. Considering, I assume they're accepting a replacement responsibility with this agreement as well. Those units cost, what, $20,000 each installed?
I would say a minimum.
All right. Any questions from the council? Any from the audience? Seeing and hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Item 12, Mr. Corey, resolution 584018.
This resolution authorizes Mayor Frank Mercado to execute a client agreement with Brett Advice LLC for cybersecurity services and training.
Since he will not respond to anything else, Mr. Booth, where did you go? Saw you moving around, I thought you were coming on down.
I was leaving.
Is your vendor here as well?
Yes, sir. I'm right here.
Why don't you come down and let's just maybe, less than a minute, on the public, and Dr. Middlebrooks, he wasn't here first.
Okay.
Mr. President, I'll go ahead and move to approve resolution 584018.
Second.
Mr. Lyden, you get there, Doc?
No, I'm good.
Those technology, I like doing those.
Shaw's feeling for me, too.
Okay.
Yeah, I gotta have some. Minutes.
Since he won't respond to anything else, Mr. Moose?
Yes, sir. So this will be training for the staff to help educate them on phishing techniques, prevent ransomware attacks and items like that. And also to give Dr. Middlebrooks credit, he was the councilman who emailed me when we sent him the test phishing. So he got a gold star on that. You didn't get the acknowledgement Thursday night. So I'll let Bob
Anything
speak.
you'd like to say, sir, about your product?
Well, we just, we worked with a lot of, a number of other municipalities, and we really provide a whole suite of services that's going to protect the city from any kind of mistakes that an employee might make that might, subject you to some of the things that happen to, you've seen in the news, things that happen to Atlanta, Montgomery, and other places. And our service tries to mitigate that risk.
Very good. Cost of this service?
I believe it was 47 or 4,800 per year.
Per year, right?
And this contract is for?
It's annual.
It's a 1-year contract.
Yes, sir.
Any questions from the council? Any from the audience? Seeing and hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Thank you, sir. Next, we have resolutions 584118. Mr. Corley.
This resolution authorizes Mayor Frank Mercado to execute a construction, engineering, and inspection agreement with Neil Schaefer for the Hoover River Chase Greenway Trailhead Project.
Move to approve resolution 584118.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Mr. Westover, if you would give us the quickest rendition, since it's just a little stifling in here.
Take a garment off for 30 minutes. It's up to you.
Now, we may be here a while.
See how transparent we get?
Madam Clerk, if you'd include that in the minutes, that Mr. Lytle wants complete transparency.
Mr. Smith, this is an agreement with Neil Schaefer to perform inspection services on the Hoover River Chase Greenway Trailhead project. We're inching that project closer and closer to bidding out, so hopefully very soon we'll have that awarded and under construction.
Cost of this phase?
Just under $75,000. It is an 80-20 split, so 20% of that is our responsibility, about $15,000.
This is budgeted on.
It is budgeted, yes, sir.
Any questions from Mr. Westover? Any questions from the audience? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Next, we have a first reading of ordinance 18-2395. Mr. Ford.
This ordinance authorizes the lease of unneeded municipal real property located within the Finley Center at 1,000 RV Trace, Hoover, Alabama, to the Alabama Sports Foundation, and authorizes Mayor Roqueto to execute a lease agreement related to this. The second reading of this item and its consideration for adoption will be on Monday, August 6, 2018.
That being a first reading, Dr. Lemak, you've taken the time to come visit. Would you like to say anything about the services that you intend to provide the area in this week? Should it be approved? I haven't counted those quite yet.
I'll just be brief. What we're here planning to do is, once we get this lease signed, is to put in programming. We're going to do health, safety, and performance at the center, along with, we'll have therapy there, and we'll have programming to basically kind of sum it up for everybody to make it safer and healthier for the students and the athletes, student athletes in the local area, and also to do programming that's broad nationally to attract attention and hopefully business to the center, using the Alabama Sports Foundation's resources and personnel to try to just do programming to fit what a wonderful center you have, and we're just proud to be able to be a part of this.
This is the first of its kind in the country.
Some aspects are, yes. Not all. We're going to do a lot of the routine things. Health, safety, performance is pretty well done around the country, but we're going to be doing research on those issues. But everything we're going to do is help enhance the club sports that are already existing there, but also try to attract more club sports to come there and participate in the center. And we're going to do some advanced programming. We're having early conversations now. For example, we're going to try to attract and headquarter the what they call the PRO, which is the Professional Referees Organization for Major League Soccer. I have a relationship with them, and we're in negotiations now to bring organizations like that to be housed here, along with providing things for the local recreation and club sports. So it's a pretty broad reach for the foundation, but we have a lot of resources. We have a lot of people that work with us to try to make this a great center.
Very good. Are all the members familiar enough with this ordinance? Any questions? Any chance there'd be the will of the council to suspend the rules?
Yes, I'll make a motion.
Dispose of that this evening, so Dr. Lemak doesn't have to come back. Mr. Murphy?
I concur, probably something I was going to say as well too, Mr. President Smith. You know, with the Filling Center and the Hoover Metropolitan Complex really a year in, and hiring our general manager and having the mayor's office having a lot of detailed time to look into this matter, I think we know as much information as we're going to need at this point to move on. So I will concur with that and make a motion to suspend the rules.
Second.
All right, we have a motion, second, to suspend the rules. Dr. Lemak, what this would do would allow us to vote tonight and maybe save you 2 weeks in getting started. So,
Thank you.
never know. I don't know how long build-out would be. But we have a motion and a second, and I believe this does require a roll call. You have to have a unanimous vote to be able to move forward, not a simple majority.
Mr. Green?
Aye.
Mr. Lyda?
Aye.
Dr. Rivera?
Aye.
Mr. Murphy?
Aye.
Mr. Posey?
Aye.
Mr. Shaw?
Aye.
Mr. Smith?
Aye. Doesn't happen often, but I think that this is very poignant and appropriate. So, unless there are any other questions from the audience? Pass this evening. Seeing, hearing none.
I'll move to adopt ordinance 18-2395.
Second.
We have a motion
partner with Hoover. It's been a long time goal of mine to get this done, and I'm humbled and by your support and everything. And I do my level best and use all of my personal resources and resources of the foundation to accomplish what we're trying to do here. Thank you so much. Appreciate
Thank you, sir.
it. Thank you, Mayor.
Next item is the second reading of ordinance 18-2363. Mr. Corley.
This ordinance amends the municipal code of the city of Hoover to provide that the city may remove inoperable vehicles from private property under certain circumstances.
President, I move for adoption of ordinance 18-2363.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. How quickly would this go into effect? After, should it pass?
We posted for
5
5 days.
days of advertising. All right. Wondering how quick. Mac already left. Maybe he's anxious to try to get started on this. Any conversation, questions, comments from the council? Any from the audience? Yes, sir. Please come down and give your name and address. We all know who you are, but those playing at home.
Mark Yeager, 3464 Tower Drive. Just curious what special circumstances are. Because I got a couple of cars I'm working on in my driveway.
That you're working on, I think the fact that you're working on it might help. Corley, would you, please give us the legal opinion of special circumstances?
Well, it's all set forth in the ordinance. We can go through the definitions or, but if we've not, remains inoperable for 30 days or more, it's in need of, major mechanical components, is incapable of being self-propelled, shows evidence of disuse, neglect, or abandonment. It's exempt if it is rendered temporarily incapable of being driven to perform ordinary service or repair for a period not greater than 30 days.
How soon do you think before these will be operable?
I'm just working on it. That's what I'm planning. One of them are restoring, so it's 68 feet, so it takes.
Is it visible?
It's in my driveway. I mean, I can put it in my garage. That was in my garage.
You have it insured? Does anyone complain?
No, it was just trying to make sure that I understood what the special circumstances are. And it's working.
Trying to find you, exemption there. Yeah, and this would require a complaint. So,
You kind of manage.
I'm sure everybody's real happy. Any other questions from the council or the audience? Hearing and seeing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Green?
Aye.
Mr. Lydic?
Aye.
Dr. Middlebrooks?
Aye.
Mr. Murphy?
Aye.
Mr. Posey?
Aye.
Mr. Shaw?
Aye.
Mr. Smith?
Aye. Item 16 is the second reading of ordinance 18-2391. Mr. Corley.
This ordinance amends the municipal code of the city of Hoover to provide additional stormwater fees to the city as allowed by Alabama law and set forth the city's stormwater program.
President, I move for adoption of ordinance 18-2391.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any comments or questions from the council?
Yes, sir, Mr. President.
Middlebrook.
Can someone tell me what the anticipated revenue generated from this ordinance will be, what the intended purpose of the revenue will be?
Yes, sir. We presently have about $110,000 annual income for our present fees, and we anticipate this is going to be in the $300,000 to $400,000 total income. We don't really know because there's so many variables here to look at.
And what would be the purpose of it?
Be to continue with the ADM program we have for stormwater quality. In addition, our new permit requires additional post-construction program, which is going to, I think initially cost us probably $100,000 first year, and that decreasing over time once we get all the inventory done and so forth. So that'll be the main thing for the expenditure.
So lowballing it a little bit, in addition, or 200,000 excess revenue that will not be put towards the new ADM standard.
I would anticipate that also.
Mr. President, with that in mind, the 200,000 extra sitting there, considering stormwater fees, I believe ordinances 5630-17 through 5634-17, declaration of public purpose regarding drainage repairs, was tabled to the call of the chair on August the 7th, 2017. I do believe that some of these funds could be used if we decided to declare those properties public purpose. Which for the audience out there, public purpose is a promotion of public health, general welfare, security, etc. For the general well-being of the public, and this is for us, for the city to be able to do work on private property. Is there any will on your part to bring these ordinances back up for consideration?
I would be happy to at the next regular meeting. I don't know that I'd be willing to tonight.
No, not tonight, but in the near future.
Okay. Well, let's see if we can get things taken care of by the next meeting, no later than the meeting after that. I'll make that promise to you.
Thank you.
Let's get with staff to see what we need to get to be able to make any of those decisions. Very good. Any other questions from the council?
Mr. President, Ms. Long, Mr. Weston, to clarify, if this is passed, we are past the deadline of Jefferson County to collect this fiscal year. So it would be enacted in Shelby County, but not Jefferson County for another year.
Yes, sir. Initially, Jefferson County told us if we get it in July, they would be fine, but they've changed their processes. So we found out recently that they cannot accommodate us this next year. Shelby County, we'll be working with them to try to get the program going. They have some startup time also. I can't, it's possible, but not probable, that it will be ready this year.
So your accrual may change quite a bit for fiscal 19, is that what you're saying?
This next year, we may not have the fee in place.
So we need to take that into consideration, perhaps have some conversation before we look at the table ordinances to determine whether that could, whether this is going to be placed in 19 or it's going to take to 20. Okay. Thank you, sir.
President, a question on those ordinances. That was a long time ago. And I don't recall, Mr. Foley, did we have a legal briefing on those ordinances as to whether or not we determined the legality of them, that those specific cases met the public purpose requirements?
If I can jump in, I don't know that we have. Those would need to be heard on a case-by-case basis after, that's.
Mr. President, I have,
They have to be on a case-by-case basis, those were the form of resolutions.
But the ordinances before us, we brought back up, they need to be passed prior to looking at those as a case-by-case, correct? Resolutions on them.
Those were separate resolutions. The stormwater ordinance is a separate distinct ordinance from those individual properties.
That's a completely separate thing.
What we'll do, that's part of the staff discussions and legal discussions we need to have prior to the meeting where they would be all back up.
I would suggest we do that in a committee, Mr. President.
Right.
If we can find the appropriate committee, I would suggest doing that in a committee.
That would probably be Mr. Green's public works.
Mr. President, just to answer Mr. Councilman Shaw's question, there is an Attorney General opinion 2005-073 that specifies that.
About these particular ordinances?
About spending funds to improve drainage on private property. I can share that with you.
We can work all that out between now and the next meeting. upon the ordinance at hand? Anything from the audience? Anything additional from the council? Seeing, hearing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Green?
Aye.
Mr. Lino?
Aye.
Dr. Hoover?
Aye.
Mr. Murphy?
Aye.
Mr. Posey?
Aye.
Mr. Shaw?
Aye.
Aye. The ordinance is adopted. Item 17, the second reading of ordinance 18-2392. Mr. Flores.
This ordinance amends the municipal code of the city of Hoover to provide for tent sales and tent usage under certain circumstances set forth in the ordinance.
Move to approve ordinance, adopt ordinance 18-2392.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any comments or questions from the council? Mr. Lopez, maybe if you could give just something very quick so the public here and those watching at home.
This ordinance deals with the permanent place of business. If a permanent place of business which wishes to have a tent sale somewhere on the parking lot or the grounds or whatever, this allows that permanent place of business to have 2 sales a year, less than 5 days. And it applies just to the permanent place of business. The other ordinance covers festivals and things like that.
How would this affect, I know there's a monthly gathering of jungle business on Shades Crest and Park Avenue. They be limited to twice a year?
They would be limited. If it was an extension of a permanent place of business, they would be limited twice a year with a tent out there, basically, if they're selling or anything like that, for less than 5 days.
What if it is not germane to that business, but that business is allowing them to conduct food trucks or tent sales on their property?
Now, the tent sales, they would have to have permission of the owner to have it, but it's still limited to 2 sales per year.
All right. While Ms. Lopez is up there, any comments or questions? I know that people that conduct those monthly gatherings are not going to want to be cut down to 2 per year. Anybody care to have any discussion on that?
So, Mr. President, you saying this would affect stuff like the farmer's market out of Ross Bridge?
No, this is basically
This is
for a
place of business.
permanent place of business to allow them to have tent sales or what on their property. The other ordinance basically addresses that.
The other ordinance has to do with special events on public property, not necessarily city-owned.
You know, public or private property, such as, let's say that the Galleria wanted to have in their parking lot. This is the other ordinance, something for the American Cancer Society, that we did to have that on their property. That is different from this ordinance.
Would the next ordinance to come up, would it allow people that are being allowed to hold these monthly gatherings off of Shades Crest, would that allow them to do 2 per year?
If I understand you correctly, those monthly gatherings are for the sole purpose of commerce. In other words, to have a place out there for someone to put their goods or everything else, that is different than the other ordinance.
Right, and of course, I believe it would handle people selling, I don't know, it may be fruits and vegetables, it may be honey, it may be jewelry, tent sales, but also, I believe it includes one or more food trucks.
Yeah, the food trucks is a separate ordinance in itself. That would not fall under a tent sale. It's totally different, with totally different rules regarding that areas.
What about the sale of jewelry, paintings, or edibles? Like if you brought up the farmers markets, I know there are several that occur around the city.
The farmer markets are a little bit different. right now, the way the ordinance reads, anyone, no one can have a tent sale or anything outside a permanent place of business. What this does is allow those kind of events to happen twice.
So at this point, it's non-conforming.
That is correct.
Any other questions or comments from the council?
Yes, Mr. President.
Mr. Murphy, we'll let you go first since you haven't spoken much. You gotta put that pink marker down because it's not the right one.
It works.
I want to be transparent.
I wasn't ready for that.
I
But,
don't know how close we are to Mr. Lytle.
Look up the time.
yeah, just a couple of things with this. Why are we, what's the reasoning for limiting the, 2 times per year? I know a lot of times, I don't want to affect the structure of a company, and the way they market it and try to get commerce in the city. Start looking at data collection as far as Walmart. They put the milk to the back of the store to force you to walk through the entire store to buy other things. So in this market we're in now, why would we limit to only 2 times? They want to go 3.
The time period is at the will of the council. If the council wishes to make it 3 days, 4 days, or 5 days, that's the will of the council. What the intention of this ordinance was to provide the business with some mechanism to have something. But certainly, if the will of the council is to change the number of days or the number of times, we certainly would abide by that decision.
I mean, I guess I wouldn't, without knowing what the business community does or what they currently do now, I wouldn't have the information to make an informed decision on that. I agree with you, we have to have some in place, but I'll just be voting on something without having the ideology around it. That's all.
Yeah, again, the whole purpose of the ordinance is to try to get a hold of the problem, similar to what you said, things have changed. And certainly, without having this mechanism, it is either or, nothing at all. So that's the whole purpose, is to try to control this, because things have changed. Businesses have changed. Certainly, if you look around the city, you'll see those kind of changes, and we've got to have some kind of mechanism in place in order to try to control it and give us something that we can control it with. Well, that's the purpose.
I have 2 questions. One is about churches, because a lot of people have sales at churches. How that would be affected here. 'Cause you have, like there's a farmer's market, for example, you said.
Right.
That the guy brings his truck to the church every
Certainly.
Sunday.
Sir, again, if you look at the definition, it tells you what shall not apply, and one of those is any type of community event open to the public. Certainly on a church, if they were bringing in and having a sale or something that was not like a vendor sale, but basically, someone coming on and things like that, certainly that would fall under that.
And the second, and that answers my question, I just wanted to be on the record about it.
Sure.
Second is there any leeway for a conditional use for something like the properties we're talking about?
Conditional use is not my area, I certainly would ask Matt, maybe he could discuss the conditional use on that. I'd be hesitant to.
Because you're kind of crossing that line, Mac, you're kind of, okay, so most of these are commercial properties, but some of the older ones may have been a house that converted into a commercial property. It's not like they can add on to it where they are, so a conditional use to allow some of the older properties to do things like that.
Typically, in my experience, we've worked off of ordinances, whether it's within the zoning ordinance or separate ordinance, like Mr. Lucas is talking about, that specifies when either for-profit or non-profit events take place. And haven't really dealt with it with a conditional use application, but that's not to say that it's not a possibility. It just be something that I need to look into a little further.
Mr. President?
Yes, sir.
Go ahead, please.
that comes under a community event, basically a nonprofit. We do not license nonprofits. Basically, if they came and put Christmas trees, on church property or whatever, certainly this ordinance would apply to that. Also, the church is not a permanent place of business.
What about a church that, my church has bargains on the bluff, where they sell clothing, in some cases furniture items?
Well, what you do is you gotta be careful of crossing the line on that. Because a lot of times what we'll find is vendors will come into that need to be licensed. Certainly there's a circuit that we know of that comes in and they hit every group because that is their business. Certainly what we do is we look at the event, we look at what's happening, who's participating, and there are the other rules also, such as if it is a bona fide vendor, there's sales tax that is included in it and things like that. So through our experience, we can pretty much take a look at that and make an administrative rule.
Since most of these occur on weekends, like Star Lake Street Fair, maybe it's a weeknight, maybe on Saturday. Y'all know, at this point, the city doesn't have revenue officers who work weekends. So how is this operating under the honor system?
Yeah, let me address that. This is a regular new phenomenon that has come back in the last year and a half. Certainly, I've been here 20 years, and within the last, probably 18 years, we had to isolate instances. Since we have had that happening now, we are in discussions such as what Mr. Rice said the other day, that we are developing some plans in order to address that in the future. Like I said again, this is a regular new phenomenon. We've got to have the right people, the right way to do it. We are definitely in discussions on how to handle that right now. But certainly, without like the tent ordinance, we do not have mechanisms to operate in order when we do address it. That's the worst position you can put in.
Dr. Middlebrooks?
Yes, sir. Mr. Lopez, like you're saying, we definitely support having the mechanism in place to facilitate these needs. However, I can't support two sales per year as it's written. I feel like we'd be limiting businesses on one part to possibly draw in business. And then I feel like we'd be limiting some very good community-wide draws events, namely the market that takes place on a shoestring at the Bluff Park. It's about once a month. And that is on a place of business that has tent sales. The whole community comes out to support that. I would prefer to see that either 2 sales per month or 1 per month at least. But whatever the will of the body here, I would like to make an amendment of one of those suggestions.
I know, right now, those events are not conforming, and thus not allowed. So anything we do is gonna be betterment. I do agree with you, though, that these community events are valuable, especially within those communities. So, I wouldn't mind hearing from other members of the council, what your thoughts are. Whether it be 1 per month, are there anybody in the public here?
I'd like to address that.
Conduct those, you participate
Yes,
as
we
a
participate
vendor?
in that. We're not a vendor. May I speak?
Yes, sir, come on.
Jerry, I was just going to say
Yes, sir.
real quick, if there was a desire to look at the conditional use aspect of it, that would require an amendment to the zoning ordinance.
Yes, sir.
Make a separate process.
Robert Schultz, 348 Albemarle Drive. What are we doing here? I mean, seriously, what is this ordinance about? Why would we be addressing something where, as you said, and as Mr. Posey said, and as Dr. Middlebrook said, We are bringing the community together, something that really hasn't happened in the past. The event that happens at, on a shoestring brings everybody out. It makes a community kind of just get together. And now we want to limit it, and we want to put an ordinance on it.
Right now, it is limited to 0.
Okay,
So we're trying to find a happy medium.
let's write an ordinance that says those things that bring the community together are fine. There should be no limit on them.
I don't think it can be that broad, Mr. Schultz. That way it will permit 7 days a week. And I think we need to have some requirements as to how often those things could occur. Now, that's my feeling. I can't speak for the other 6 members of the council. I think what Dr. Middlebrooks is doing is trying to help us determine what would be appropriate. And then once we find what's appropriate, we need to ask the attorneys whether we need to start over. Because as it changed enough, it would require a new first reading. So we're trying to go from 0 to something.
This is a second reading, and this is a roll call vote tonight. Am I correct?
If the motion is made, it continues to keep it that way. We're in conversation at this point. We can't make any vote until conversation is permitted if you are participating.
Mr. President, following up on what Mr. Schultz is saying, I'm not 100% certain about this number either. Why do we need a number?
I mean, we're doing it once a month, and it has been twice a month. What I have seen is it really, really strengthens the community. And so by limiting it to twice a year, that makes no sense whatsoever.
That's what I'm saying. Why are we limiting it?
Well, right now, it's limited to 0 times per year. So it's not permitted at all. So we're trying to determine if we're going to allow it legally, how should that be defined? Mr. Price, do you have to speak?
But some community input would probably be worthy, but I mean, as far as the rest of the community, I can only speak for myself, but there are other communities in Hoover that probably would like to have a say-so as well, so.
Well, last week, at our 911 committee meeting, Mr. Singer represented the entire city when it came to the vote, and he did a rather well job.
Mr. President,
Yes, sir.
what about once a month, only on Saturday, Sunday? Is that fair? That's when most of these occur. And this one, it's important to note this one because it is at a place of business. It's different than some of the ones that are parks, which we're taking up next. But what do you think about once a month, only on a Saturday, Sunday?
As the will of the body.
Mr. President, if I may on that, Mr. Posey,
Yes, sir.
I don't believe you should limit it just on weekends, because I know right now, or just this past week, Dick's Sporting Goods is having a tent sale during the week. So, once again, we'd be limiting business coming into this city.
Just a quick note in honor of the temperature. This came about
He
because,
still has his clothes
for now, this came about as a result of complaints that were received from community members about events at Star Lake. That's what started us down this path. And as we tried to unbundle that, we figured out that we had public property issues, which are actually the next ordinance. We had events that were community-based events, and I think somebody's referenced some of the neighborhood association, farmers markets, etc. We had events that were purely commercial events at established places of business. And we also have some events that just literally pop up along the right of way on Highway 31 in a couple of spots. These are people who were, I guess, transient merchants who unload a van full of stuff and set up shop on a Saturday and sell until the police come along and tell them they can't be in the right of way. And so in trying to scope all that, we were trying to be very strategic about leaving the nonprofits, the neighborhood-based, HOA-based, those type of things out. We have to do something about Star Lake, it's our property, and I think we've got a good solution in the next ordinance. We're not sure that anybody's interested in perpetual tent sales, where a business has a tent out all year or every Saturday. That again is the will of the body. We kind of worked off the assumption that that's not what we wanted to see in the city. But I think there's a lot of deliberation that's gone into trying to scope this to where it excludes a lot of the concerns that we've heard here tonight. Again, on the question of frequency and duration, we've got no position on that. That's purely the council's purview to decide how long they want these to be and how many they want to allow every year. Right now, they're, as you pointed out correctly, Mr. Smith, they're not allowed, they're unregulated, and it presents a challenge for us because we do get complaints about it. Not everyone is met with open arms from every member of the community, so we're kind of in a trick box when it comes to answering those without an ordinance.
Mr. President, in looking at field and stream, places like that, what about once a month not to exceed 7 consecutive days? And would that require another first reading?
Yes.
Okay.
Mr. President, I think it's important that if we're gonna make this type of change, and it's gonna affect the people that are probably making a living off of it, and also the community aspect to it, that we kind of either continue to table it, provide that input in, instead of making it on the dialysis right now. I think that's it.
It also sounds like, if I may, with what Mr. Posey has recommended, it would change the ordinance enough where we're going to need to start over and have another first reading. That being said, perhaps we're to a point where we can vote up or down this particular ordinance and start over. So, that being said, is there anybody else wish to speak? That being said, unless Mr. Slider wants to change his motion, then we can call the roll and see where we go. Hearing no changes, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Green?
Aye.
Mr. Lyda?
Nay.
Dr. Middlebrooks?
Nay.
Mr. Murphy?
Nay.
Mr. Posey?
Nay.
Mr. Shaw?
Nay.
Mr. Smith?
Nay. So, we're going to go back to the drawing board, and hopefully, maybe by the next meeting, we can have a new first reading. And unless, Mr. Green, would you like to have your public works committee see about this in the next 2 weeks, or at least within the next 30 days?
Yes.
to
Yes.
Have a first reading.
I think that's excellent. I'll announce meeting date on that.
Very good. So we're going to start again, and it will go before the Public Works Committee. Next, item 18, second reading of ordinance 18-339.
This ordinance amends the municipal code of the city of Hoover to provide for the licensing of special events to be held on public property.
Okay, well, need a motion.
Move to approve or adopt ordinance 18-2393.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Mr. Lopez.
Yes, sir.
Everything else having been said, what kind of recommendations do you have with this? Do we have the same issues? Do we have different,
As far as recommendations on,
how many days?
well, in this ordinance, it's 5 days or less. To allow, we looked at all the events, basically, that the city, surrounding the city, such as the SEC or whatever. So it's 5 days or less, and most of the events that we have in the city are 5 days or less.
Is there a cap number of times per year?
No.
So, if it's public property, which means it's not leased or owned by an existing business.
Yep. only regulates license for this certain amount of days, basically for the event. Has no determination.
Very good. Any questions for Mr. Lopez? From the council?
Yes, sir, Mr.
Yes,
President.
Dr. Middleton.
Just to clarify, does this include city events on public property? And I'm thinking of the fan fest at the SEC baseball days.
Yes, this includes all events, but since the city is basically a nonprofit organization or governmental entity, there would be no licensing or anything.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the council? Any from the audience? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Green.
Aye.
Mr. Lyder.
Aye.
Dr. Middlebrooks.
Aye.
Mr. Murphy.
Aye.
Mr. Posey.
Aye.
Mr. Shaw.
Aye.
Mr. Smith.
Aye. The ordinance is adopted. Item 19 is a public hearing to consider the request of Jamie Cowden, U.S. Steel, for conditional use approval for the Church of Ross Bridge to operate at 2101 Grand Avenue in Ross Bridge. Property owned by U.S. Steel Corporation is zoned PC land commercial. Notice planning and zoning with a positive recommendation. This is a public hearing. Is there anybody here to speak for or against? Come on down, sir. In a hurry, I don't know how much time Mr. Lyder takes something on.
I'll do my best. Members of the council, Mr. Mayor, my name is Dr. Nathan Carden. I'm the senior pastor of the Church of Ross Bridge. I've been there in that capacity since July of 2017. I do not represent U.S. Steel. They do not have a representative here this evening, but would be happy to address any concerns or questions the council may have.
How long has the church been operating now?
The church has been operating there on a weekly basis since 2012, but they actually have had devoted use of the entire Welcome Center building since April of 2016. We're a United Methodist congregation. We own 7 acres. It's already paid for on the opposite side of the parkway at 3600 Ross Bridge Parkway. And our inhabiting of this space is just the first step that we're taking. We plan to be in the community and be a community partner for a long time.
So this is just a permanent facility.
Well, we're actually in process with U.S. Steel to purchase the building, but we did not want to purchase the building until we knew for sure that we would not face any issues with having a presence there.
Very good. This is a public hearing. Any questions from the council?
Yes, sir, Mr. President.
Dr. Middlebrooks.
Matt, just to clarify, or is there any issue with a church being located to a place of business that sells alcohol within it?
I'd be happy to also state that the Front Porch Restaurant, which does serve alcohol, preceded our presence in the community. We certainly would have no issue with that, and because we are United Methodists, they may find that some of our congregation are very supporters. So, should there ever be another commercial vendor in the new construction that's taking place in Ross Bridge that required a liquor license, we would not oppose that presence.
Thank you, Pastor.
I could go someplace. Any other questions for this public hearing? Anything from the audience? Hearing none. Corley, do you have any statement? Well, we're gonna need to, do you have anything you need to read prior to a motion? No, sir. That being said, open to a motion.
Mr. President, I move to approve the conditional use for Church of Ross Bridge.
Second. We have a motion, second. All right, we have a motion before us. Any conversation from the council or the audience?
One more thing, Mr. President, I'll be quick, I promise. I just want to commend Pastor Carden and his church. They are excellent community partners within Ross Bridge and Hoover. I know they have hosted the city out there when we had some safety issues in the neighborhood. They hosted a city event there, and they're just always very welcoming in the neighborhood. So for that, I thank you.
Very good. Before anything else, Mr. Lyder, what would be the first thing to go? favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Congratulations, Pastor. Next, item 20 is a public hearing to consider the request of Christian Scott Huskin for conditional use approval to allow on and off-premise sale of retail beer and retail table wine at the Casual Pint located at 5541 Grove Boulevard at the Grove. This property is owned by Kimco Realty Corporation. It's zoned EC Plan Commercial. It comes with a positive recommendation. Planning and zoning, this is a public hearing. Is there anyone here to speak for or against? Please give us your name and address loudly in the microphone so those playing.
Hello, my name is Scott Huskin. I am from 861 Crescent Cove, Hoover, Alabama. Been here about a year and a half. Absolutely love Hoover. Here to like answer any questions for you.
Where did you come from?
I came from Knoxville, Tennessee,
Knoxville.
and that is where the Casual Pint started from. They've got 42 stores now, kind of nationwide. Unfortunately, I'll be number 2 in the great state of like Alabama. It's my constable's opening next Friday. So,
Did you make your choice in football teams? Would you apply for the rest of
actually, my daughter is going to the University of Alabama, Birmingham. So I'm a Blazers fan.
Very good, very good. Any questions from the council?
When do you if we get approval tonight, we will start the construction August, and basic build out runs about 45 to like 65 days. Just curious how that goes. Excellent.
You and I.
See you in a little bit.
Anything else from the council? Anything from the audience? Need to hurry, because we don't know where we are on the clock, Mr. Lyman. So, public hearing is now closed, and I'll open the motion.
Mr. President, I would move for approval of conditional use for the Casual Pint.
Second.
A motion and second. Any other questions? Hearing none. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Good luck, sir.
Thank you.
Next, item 21 is to set public hearings for Monday, August 6th.
Mr. President, real quick, we have to
Yes, sir.
approve an ABC zoning.
All right.
I would move to approve the ABC application for GNR Holdings LLC, DBA The Casual Pint.
Second.
Got a motion and second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. I don't think it's on the agenda. Glad you brought it up.
No, it was added as.
Oh, let's see, I don't have, I didn't have a yellow one.
Well, Mr. President, it's about my 10th time to do it, and I've screwed up everyone until this one, so I wanted to get this one.
And I took your opportunity. All right, now we're gonna set the public hearings for Monday, August 6th. Consider the following to come forward with positive recommendation from planning and zoning. City of Hoover proposes to rezone the following recently annexed properties, Jefferson County A1 to Hoover A1 Agricultural District. 2173 Silver Spur Lane, owned by David Havron. 2155 Silver Spur Lane, owned by James A. Whaley. 1516 Melton Road and 1518 Melton Road, owned by Deborah J. Fowl. 1536 Melton Road, owned by Aaron Robbins and Co. Frederick. Last name. 1542 Melton Road, owned by Byron Taylor. 2151 Silver Spur Lane, owned by Mary Lou Henry. 1512 Melton Road, owned by Mark Brown. For your first reading of ordinance 18/2296.
Yes, sir, Mr. President. This ordinance amends Hoover's zoning ordinance by rezoning the properties you just listed from Jefferson County A1 to Hoover A1.
You pay less when you talk Spanish. City of Hoover proposes to rezone recently annexed properties located at 1863 and 1865 Buttercup Drive, owned by Blake Baxter. Jefferson County R1 to Hoover R1, which is single family district. Mr. Kirk, for your first reading of ordinance 18/2296. second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Comments and questions, first from the council.
Mr. President, there will be an Arts Council meeting in the council chamber if there is air conditioning on July 26th at 4 p.m. If there's not air conditioning, we'll go somewhere cooler like the